Hey, Chicago, what do you say? It's the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Luke Stuckmeyer, Ryan Herrera, Cody Delmendo, fresh off our emergency podcast from last night, talking about the Shota Imanaga addition to the Cubs rotation. We're going to talk tons about that again today, including how it might impact the rotation, what the deal really is, and how that impacts where they go moving forward. We're going to talk a little bit about Dylan Cease later in the show. Because, Wild Thought Wednesday, he was a Wild Thought Wednesday at one point this offseason.
He was.
He's still out there, but it sounds like it's not super likely for the Cubs. And we have a special guest. Let's start with that because Cubs convention is coming up. Well, geez, it's 2 days away now. Friday is the opening ceremony. And, of course, there's a lot to be. We're wondering if Cody Bellinger is going to be unveiled maybe. Maybe they're saving Cody Bellinger for that. And now we've got Shota. Will we have Sosa is another question. Veteran Cubs beat writer Bruce Miles joins us on the show. Bruce, how you doing?
I'm doing great, guys. Cubs convention, always the coldest weekend of the year, and it seems like that's going to be the case again.
It's always snowing for Cubs convention. You're right. And so the cold weather's here. Bruce, you're part of the committee, correct? That decides like who gets voted in for the Cubs Hall of Fame. Now, obviously, people need to realize this is different than Cooperstown. This is the Cubs Hall of Fame. So who's on the ballot for this year? I know you can't tell us who's going to be announced at Cubs Convention, who's in, but who's a possibility?
Well, I think there are several. If you look at last year, Mark Grace and Sean Dunston got in, and they've moved the eligibility timeline up to further in the modern day. So you'll see guys on the ballot like Kerry Wood, Aramis Ramirez, Sammy Sosa, of course, the one we're all talking about, Ryan Dempster, Carlos Marmol, Derek Lee, and you go back even further to guys who played in the 50s like Bill Swish Nicholson and executive like Dallas Green. So off the top of my head, those are among the candidates. There's probably 12, 15 candidates on the ballot, and to Cubs Hall of Famers, in other words, guys who are in Cooperstown, Lee Smith and Fergie and Billy Williams and Ryan Sandberg and Andre Dawson, as well as several media members, myself and Bruce Levine and David Haw, Barry Rosner, Peggy Kaczynski, Kerry Muscat, Dan Roan. People like that all vote on this.
Okay, so that's first of all, it's a distinguished group on both sides. You have Hall of Famers, and then you have people that covered the Cubs for a long, long time. Some are still covering the Cubs. How do you guys meet when the committee meets to vote on this? I assume you do it in person, or is this just like, hey, send in your ballot?
No, it's in person and on Zoom if anybody can't make it. So we had a meeting in December about this, early December. They presented us with a slate of candidates and a packet of information about stats and so forth about each candidate. And if it was an executive like Dallas Green, about his accomplishments. And we just kind of discuss without trying to sway each other, what the pros and cons of each person might be. And then we go off and vote and submit our ballots. And they say the only thing they ask us not to do is reveal our vote, which, I'll honor here, of course. And, we'll find out in a couple of days who, if anybody, made the Cubs Hall of Fame this year.
Interesting. So, and Ed Hardig, the great historian for the Cubs, gives you a lot of the information, right, in the packets that shows these are the stats. This is what this player's done. So what's the criteria? Like, what do you have to meet to be a Cubs Hall of Famer? Because I could look at it and say, well, this player was one of my favorites. He's a Hall of Famer. But the numbers might not say Cubs Hall of Famer. Cooperstown is about the numbers, mostly, right? Is the Cubs Hall of Fame the same?
Yeah, I think they're very similar. I think the bar is different for each one, and I don't mean to disparage either one by saying that, but you look at a guy like Sammy Sosa with Cooperstown, didn't get anywhere near the votes and nearly fell off the ballot one year, but they're both about numbers, obviously. I think for me, that's about 85% of it. The rest of it is, the character and kind of what they meant to the city and their franchise. If you look on the Cooperstown ballot, a guy that's going to make it, and right now there are 5 people trending above 75%, is Joe Mauer, the catcher from the Twins. I look strongly not only his stats, but at what he meant to Minnesota, the Twins, and so forth. Same thing with the Cubs. I mean, if you look at a guy like Sosa, you can look at what he did numbers wise. You can look at how popular he was. And you also have to take into consideration the steroid suspicion, the corked bat, the way he left the team, and weigh all those things. I don't know the exact criteria of who gets slated on the ballot. I don't know if you have to be a Cub for more than 5 years, say. But they're all prominent names. I think Bill Madlock is on that. He didn't play for the Cubs for more than 3 or 4 years, I think, but he won a batting title, very prominent. He's still very active with the Cubs. So it's a pretty good cross section, but you do have to have pretty strong credentials, just as you do with Cooperstown.
Yeah, and I'm curious how you've seen just between all the voters, the variance of what you feel means a Cubs Hall of Famer means, like between what obviously how you feel. You said 85% of it's kind of the stats, but like for you versus what some of these other voters have kind of considered to be a Cubs Hall of Famer.
Yeah, and I think that's the beauty of any ballot, whether it's Cooperstown, where you have a nationwide electoral base, and here you have media members who most of us covered many of these players, including Sammy and Aramis Ramirez and Kerry Wood. And then you have Cubs Hall of Famers who might come at it from a different angle. I know that, say, Ryan Sandberg has been kind of outspoken about so-called playing the game the right way. And those seem to me to be veiled, I don't know if shots or opinions about Sammy that might lead him. And I have no idea how he voted to vote against Sammy. But guys, Billy Williams was Sammy's first hitting coach in Chicago. Got along with him very well. So I don't know if that plays into it. But we go around and we talk about each of us has blind spots, I'm sure, is how we vote. And there were other candidates on the ballot that I didn't know this about. Say Fred Mitchell on the committee, the longtime Trib writer who covered like the '84 Cubs, was able to provide some insight about guys like Jody Davis and others who played back then that I might not have had. So we each bring our own perspective and try to say, okay, this is what I think pros and cons about a guy. Then we all take that home and, mull it over. But it's a very good process, and it's one that we all take very seriously.
So, Bruce, how would you describe covering Sammy Sosa?
Oh, man. Up and down, down and up. It was a roller coaster each day. You guys might know, I, along with Jesse Rogers, wrote a book called The Franchise. And one of the chapters I wrote, the longest chapter in the book and my favorite, is on Sammy Sosa. Covering him was something else because you never knew what mood he was in. Sammy, he to me always seemed to be looking for something that maybe he didn't have, whether it was respect from his teammates, whether it was adulation from the fans, whether it was deference from the media. Sammy always seemed to be in search of something that maybe he felt he didn't have. So he could be very charming on some days. He could be very moody on some days, like us all, I suppose. I mean, we're all like that some days. But it was a trip simply because he was a superstar, and he had the national media during that home run chase with McGwire. They were here with us every day, July, August, September, and into the playoffs when they made the wild card. So covering Sammy was you almost needed a beat writer to do this on his or her own because you had 24 other guys on the team with him. But Sammy was such a story that you almost needed a person on the beat just for him.
So the Cubs put him on this ballot, right? Like the Cubs give you the names of people to vote on, right? That's where that comes from. Just like Cooperstown, correct. They're presented a list of names that could be eligible for it. So I felt like when it first happened that this was a bit of an olive branch potentially from the Cubs saying, well, we're at least considering Sam. We may not welcome him back yet, but this is the olive branch. We'll let an unbiased committee of former players and Hall of Famers and media members decide on Sammy Sosa. Do you think the fans should have a vote in this? Like one vote?
I don't know. I mean, you start getting into fan things, and you look at the All-Star game, and sometimes the fan voting is, they do have a vote at the end where they do vote online, and then they have another vote to get a couple more guys on. I don't know about that. I mean, if they wanted to do it that way, I suppose that would be fine. I'm sure that opinion would be split. Sammy's one of the most polarizing figures in Cubs and White Sox history, something else I go over in the book. And so I don't know about having a fan vote. I don't even know how you would do that. And, if people could, storm the ballot boxes and vote 10 times yes or 10 times no on that. So I don't know. That might be a little bit unwieldy. I think it's pretty good the way it is with people who were around him and then other players who were around their own contemporaries and then maybe had dealings with Sammy. So I think that the process works. But to your point about it being an olive branch, this is one of the things I suggested in the book. Tom Ricketts, for years, as you know, has been very, very against having some sort of reconciliation with Sammy. He said at the convention, he's got to come clean, or I want to hear certain things. Well, this is the off-ramp, and I've provided it to them in that if this committee elects Sammy to the Hall of Fame, well, what's Tom going to do? He can't not invite him back. That would look petty and everything else. So if this committee votes Sammy on, Tom is off the hook. He can say, look at these people who over here who no one told how to vote, voted him in. Now he's in. We have to bring him back. And whether that he's in or not, I think it's high time for a reconciliation. This has gone on too long.
I think we all kind of feel that way.
Yeah, whether he gets in the Cubs Hall of Fame or not, the fact that he hasn't even been, I don't know, the relationship hasn't been repaired is, like you said, Bruce, is long past due. So it's more for me when it comes to whether he gets voted into the Cubs Hall of Fame or not. I guess it would be very telling if he doesn't get in for however long he's on this ballot, whether it's this year or not. At this point, my guess is no, because he's not even on the list that the Cubs put out of players who are going to be here this weekend. So, Well,
that would give it away, though.
Yeah, that would give it away.
Perhaps could give
Maybe
it away.
He's the big surprise.
Perhaps it is, but I'm just looking at it from an objective view. Credit to me, but I'm curious to how much longer, because it feels, you mentioned Ryan Sandberg in his basic disdain comments, whatever you want to call it. Like, what would it take for even Sammy Sosa to get some of these guys to change their mind? I would guess that Ryan Sandberg voted against him. So what would Sammy Sosa need to do to even get some perception changed from some of these other guys too? I think it's more than just Tom if he doesn't get in, which again I don't think he is based off what we've learned this week.
Yeah, you know what? For years, and I'll dovetail this in with the Cooperstown vote with Bonds, Clemens, Sosa, Palmeiro, some of these other guys. I really do wish that some of these guys would have mounted some PR campaign where they came out and said, okay, I did steroids and this is why I did them, or no, I didn't. You still don't have any proof, and I was good to the game. I tried my hardest every game. I played to win. I wish they would have come out and said something to give the public to maybe calm this whole steroid thing down. So I think it would take, and I really wish that there was some kind of a back channel or secret meeting between Tom or Tom's people and Sammy's people somewhere. They go down to Florida and they hash things out of the public view. And maybe Tom can, have a heart-to-heart with Sammy without anybody knowing about it. And, try to find out where each side is coming from. Some of the other things I see and hear, and I like Carlos Zambrano very much, but Carlos Zambrano also walked out on the team after a start in 2011. And he's been back many times to Wrigley Field. He's been at the convention, and he's even sung the seventh inning stretch there. So to me, at this point, and we talk about being a country of second chances and all that. This is baseball. This is not crime and punishment. And it just, give a lot of the people what they want. They fly Sammy's flag up on the roof with the 66 home runs. They show highlights on the video boards there. Just stop all this.
Yeah.
All right, sounds good, Bruce.
I got one more question.
Yeah. Oh, sorry.
I got one more question.
Sure.
Is there a write-in vote on the ballot? Because we're trying to figure out how to get good old Luke Stuckmeyer into the Cubs Hall of Fame.
Or Tony Campana.
We haven't found the way, but is there a write-in ballot that we could get Luke Stuckmeyer on the ballot next year?
Well, I will bring that up with Ed Hardig in the committee. I don't know if it's like Cooperstown. You can do a write-in, they acknowledge it, but they don't count it. But, you make a very good point there. I might have to use my considerable pull to try to
There you
make
go.
that happen.
There you
I
go.
have been in Ed Hardig's basement. Fun fact.
One of the few.
Full of books. A lot of books.
I don't think I want to hear any more.
All right. Hey, speaking of books, Bruce, any chance you're signing some of those books that you and Jesse wrote at Cubs Convention, or is it available anywhere at the convention?
I would hope so. I'm not sure. It's not a officially authorized Cubs book.
Okay.
Which is nice because we had freedom to say whatever we wanted. So unless the publisher has a booth there, no, there's no signing or anything like that. But I'll certainly keep the public apprised. We have some other things in the work for over the next coming months, and I'll keep people apprised. And I'm glad people like the book, enjoyed the book, and like to argue about certain different parts of it.
All right. Sounds good. Bruce, we appreciate you dropping in, and stay safe out there when it gets nice and cold for Cubs Convention.
Thanit so much, guys. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. Thanks, Bruce.
Thanks, Bruce.
Great Bruce Miles, veteran Cubs. Well, I tell you, it almost sounded like Bruce would have been a plus vote.
Yeah.
I wasn't sure which side of the Sammy argument I thought he would go. I agree Ryan Sandberg is a no. Yeah. He made a good point about Billy Williams being his hitting coach.
Yeah.
I don't know which way Dan Roan. I've had a lot of conversations with Dan Roan, but I mean, I don't know which way he would have gone. I would guess Dan Roan would vote yes on Sammy Sosa, but Bruce sort of sounded like he was up for the Cubs forgiving Sammy Sosa.
Did he say how many people are on the ballot? I know he mentioned former players and media.
Well, he said it's the Hall of Famers, right? So
Yeah.
it's Billy, Lee Smith is on it,
Fergie.
Andre Dawson, Fergie, Rhino. Am I missing somebody? So there's 5. Then he
there's 5
mentioned
of
the
them.
other people were David Haw, Peggy Kaczynski,
obviously.
Kerry Muscat, Bruce. Who did I just mention earlier?
You have to go back and
Oh,
look.
Dan Roan.
Okay.
So that's 5.
It's like 10 people.
That'd be 10 that I can think of right there.
So I wonder how many, like the votes he would need, and like obviously who those votes would be coming from. But I don't know.
Now, he didn't say people that were in also got a vote, right? Like current members don't. Like
I don't from the Cubs Hall of Fame.
correct,
I don't-
correct.
yeah,
So
I
like
don't think he said
Sean
that.
Dunston doesn't get a vote. I don't believe. I think it's just this committee.
So I wonder, and you made the great point about if they had put Sammy Sosa on the thing they released, like that would obviously give it away. That would ruin the surprise. No,
the
I mean,
rumor has been that he's not
yeah,
getting
the
it.
rumor is
from
that he's
what-
not.
I actually have a source of being
Right.
told
Yes.
that he's not in. So
He's not in.
Yeah, I'm not going to reveal that person. Credit
Right.
to me, but perhaps that person might be on our show soon. So all
right.
I'm saying is, I personally, yes, I believe he belongs in the Cubs Hall of Fame because you can't tell the story of the Chicago Cubs without Sammy Sosa. He created an entire generation of fans that you cannot. That's fact. That is actual fact. On the other hand, I understand that the way he left, wasn't great. Yeah, steroids, blah blah blah. You know what? Barry Bonds is welcome back at Oracle Park. Mark McGwire is in the Cardinals Hall of Fame as well. Like I don't care. Like to me, you gotta, at the very least, you gotta repair some of this disdain between the organization and Sammy Sosa for the fans, because at the end of the day, y'all make money because of people like me. All right, that's just a fact of the matter. And I'm not saying you have to agree or agree with what I'm saying or disagree. Like, I understand that that he is a polarizing player, probably the most polarizing player in this organization's modern day history.
Oh yeah,
But
for sure, absolutely.
But it just doesn't feel right that he's not even like someone that comes back and sings the stretch or
Well, what's the reaction?
does something like that.
Let's just say he gets in. Okay, let's just throw it out there and say he gets in. And they introduce Sammy at Cubs Convention. They sweep him into town. It's not Bellinger that's the surprise. The surprise is Sammy Sosa. Look at our chat. It's a 50-50 split on people that love him, hate him.
Yeah.
Would it be raucous cheering along with loud booing at the same time?
You get-
that would be weird.
I think you get a Stone Cold Steve Austin level pop from the crowd at Cubs convention.
Oh, it'd be the loudest thing you ever heard, but I think
no,
it would. I think it'd be mildly split.
I don't think it would be close to being split. It's
think
the
it'd be
Cubs
mostly-
convention. Like when we talk, if we go
But
if we
a
go
lot of
by
old
off what the
heads-
chat said, if we go by off what the chat says, Tom Ricketts would be booed heavily at the Cubs convention when it's more like a mixed reaction. Like, it's not. It's,
Colada would be booing.
yeah, Claude would be booing for Ricketts, but what I'm saying is at the Cubs convention, it's a lot more mixed than straight up boos, which is what we would get if it was just our chat at the Cubs convention. I don't think
Jay thinks 50-50.
I think it would be mostly cheers for Sammy Sosa if he were to walk on that stage.
I think a lot.
And I think maybe the surprise factor.
You might
of it
be
helps.
right based on the
Yes.
people that ask the question every year, like, when is Sammy coming back? And then people are like,
Yeah.
maybe.
And what you said there at the end, the
surprise factor.
surprise factor would play a major part.
Oh,
in
yeah.
that.
Either
And-
way, the room would explode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, listen, I know people aren't going to agree with what I said, and I'm not here to say that I'm right or wrong, but when you look at it objectively, it makes all the sense to bring him back, in my opinion.
I see what Keybird is saying. I don't know what Sammy. I don't know that he needs to. What does he need to make amends with Cubs fans for cheating? For the
For
steroids?
walking out in the last game of the year.
Bruce is right about the Zambrano. Big Z did walk out.
Yeah. I don't know, man.
I don't know.
Guys make mistakes. Not like the
cheating
guy
again.
committed murder. You know what I mean?
I
Like,
started
That's the
a
way I
poll.
feel about it.
yeah, it's just like
It's the Stone Cold walked out on the WWE. I feel like everything can tie back to wrestling in some way. But no, Sammy's
What if Sammy
walking
were
out,
laying down? You know how sometimes they do it up on the balcony, and if you could just see the balcony, and all of a sudden they were like, and the newest member, and Sammy sat up like the Undertaker. Boom.
Oh god.
The light came on, and he just
No.
sat.
yeah.
No, I think
No?
when we're talking about it, that was what year is it now? Is it like 18, 19 years ago now? The
Yeah, it's a
Sammy
long time
walking
ago.
out?
Yeah.
Like, we're getting to the point
2004.
Was it then 04,
Yeah.
right? So we're getting to the point where it's like, how long do you need till you can make amends, right? Like how long are you holding on to a grudge that, when we're talking about Ricketts, you weren't around for? Like, you weren't the
Right.
owner of the team. Like, how long can you hold on to and maybe not a grudge, right? Maybe it's just like a,
and
I don't know.
I
what-
missed
don't know the
covering him by
specific
1
reason.
year, and I'm kind of bummed by it.
I don't know.
Even
It's-
though I know most people say it was a nightmare,
I don't know. I just
because I like a good circus.
that's fair.
you like chaos.
Yeah,
like
you do
chaos.
it. You're an agent of chaos.
And I've said this a handful of times too. Like, the steroids thing, it just doesn't bother me. They're letting people who use steroids in the Hall of Fame now. David Ortiz linked to steroids.
That's the
Jeff
weird thing.
Bagwell linked to steroids. They're in the Hall of Fame, bro. Like, and we're not even talking about the Hall of Fame. We're talking about the Cubs Hall of Fame. Like, so I don't care about the steroids, bro. I don't, man. To me, it's
that's
just-
why I
it's just
suggested a fan
it's a
vote
lazy
of-
excuse to me now.
Just have clicks. If people want to stuff the ballot, it's only one vote. Like, let's say if I had the numbers right, if it is 5 Hall of Famers and 5-ish media members, let's say it's 10 votes, and you got to have the fan vote be the 11th vote,
Yeah,
just in case it's split.
right.
The fan vote is the deciding factor, yes or no.
How they could do the fan vote, I think, would be some way of going online and just choosing. And,
Yeah.
and they would have to make sure that each person only gets one vote somehow, some way. It's the
Each
internet. You
IP
find a
address
way.
can only vote
Right.
once.
Right?
Or Chicago style, go ahead and click it 1 billion times, whatever.
Sure. Right? Like that, or maybe it's the people who go to Cubs convention and
That's
you
right.
know what I mean? Like
Do it old style. Do one of the old punch a hole in it, throw it in
Right.
the thing.
Something like that. I think the fans deserve a voice. Again, the fans are the reason the Cubs are the Cubs. And so I think that when it comes to this kind of Hall of Fame, I think that they deserve a voice. I'm not saying they get to choose who's going to be on the ballot. The Cubs and all of them can make that choice. It's more of just having a voice in who gets in.
Yeah.
I think that it's fair.
I think he should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame. I know he should be in the Cubs Hall of Fame. In my heart. Like, I mean, if there's that many people that love him and he has the greatest numbers.
Yeah.
The numbers in our YouTube chat say that 44 people, what is it? They voted 86% for yes to bring Sammy back.
There you go.
And about 14% said no. So that's about like 2 or 3 people.
Okay. All right, we're going to talk Shota Imanaga here in a second. Lots to talk about. Ryan, tell us about our friends at Game Time.
Yeah, so I use Game Time if ever I'm going to anything, any sort of event, concert, sports, whatever. I'm using Game Time. I went to an Eric Church concert down in Tinley Park over the summer. Maybe it was in August, maybe. It was that weekend they were in Toronto, the Cubs. I think that was in August. I went there. I used it for an R.L. Grime concert a couple months ago or last month, whenever that was. But yeah, Game Time hooked it up for me. You shouldn't have to worry when you're buying tickets to your next big event. Game Time is the fast and easy way to buy tickets for all the sports, music, comedy, and theater events near you. With killer last-minute deals, all-in prices, views from your seat, and their best price guarantee, Game Time takes the guesswork out of buying tickets. Sarah's got it up right now on the screen if you're watching on YouTube. Great deals for the
$19 for tonight.
Great deals for Bulls-Rockets game. Still great deals if you want to go to the Bulls-Warriors game on Friday. That's seemingly a big game on a Friday night. So that's, the Game Time, great deals over there. Again, some things I like about it. Last-minute tickets, flash deals, zone deals. It's easy to find and buy tickets for every kind of event in our area. You get the views from all seats in the venue, lowest price guarantee, event cancellation protection, job loss protection, all that stuff you get with Game Time. Game Time is the only ticketing app that gives you complete peace of mind with your purchase. See the view from your seat before you buy so you know exactly what to expect when you arrive. All-in prices show your total up front so you know you're getting a great deal without hidden fees. Buy tickets in seconds with 2 taps. Game Time is obsessed with finding ways to help you save money on tickets. Game Time has deals on tickets right up to the start of the event, and even an hour after it starts. It's the place to find last-minute seats. Find exclusive flash deals and sponsored deals on tickets for football, basketball, baseball, concerts, comedy, theater, and more. With zone deals, you pick the section and Game Time picks the seats for an average of 18% savings. And the Game Time guarantee means you'll always get the best price. If you find tickets in the same section and row for less, Game Time will credit you 110% of the difference. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code CHGO for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code CHGO for $20 off. Download Game Time today. Last-minute tickets, lowest price, guaranteed.
Buy your tickets. I was looking at Sebastian Maniscalco comedy tour coming to the United Center, I think in November of 2024. And for 2 tickets, my wife and I wanted to go. The guy's from Arlington Heights. He's like 2 years younger than I am. He went to rival Rolling Meadows High School. Know a lot of people that know. He's hysterical. One of the biggest names in comedy. $600+ to go to the United Center to see it. I'm waiting for Game Time. I'm going to wait for those last-minute drops. Now, after I get those tickets, then I'm going to go buy my carpet at Empire. Empire today, you shop at home with the convenience of home. The right product for your needs, quick and professional installation, and a low price guarantee. Empire's the best place to get your new flooring, so there's copycats, but they can't beat Empire on quality, service, or speed. Sure, if a place is offering you the lowest price, they probably are putting flooring in your home that they wouldn't put in theirs. Empire eliminates the garbage. What they do is they look at all the products and they say, okay, this stuff is junk. We're not even going to allow that to go into your house. We're not even going to give you the option of making that mistake. We're only picking the good free agents. Here's what you do. And here's your virtual floor designer. Snap a picture of your house, your room, your den, your living room, wherever it might be. And then you can see what that carpet or flooring will look like in that space. Schedule a free in-home estimate today. All listeners can receive $350 off, a great discount when you use the promo code, 4 letters, CHGO. Again, the promo code CHGO, $350 off. They took care of our guy, the Godfather, Michael Collada. They did him right, he said yesterday. Restrictions apply. See EmpireToday.com/CHGO for details.
Related to Game Time, I've been following the ticket prices for John Mellencamp out in Rockford in March, and the cheapest one is well over $100. So I'm following.
John Mellencamp's going to be in Rockford?
Yeah, in March. Yeah.
Mellencamp is a concert I've always wanted to go to. Now he's getting old.
Yeah,
the guy's had multiple heart attacks.
I credit to my mom for introducing me to him, but
I'm not gonna lie, I don't know who that is.
Yes, you do.
Maybe I probably do, but I don't.
Jack and Diane, little ditty.
Jack and Diane.
About Jack and Diane.
Okay, I know that song.
Yeah.
Right?
Or
I was born in a small town.
yeah, there you go.
Okay. Yeah,
Check it
I know John
out.
Mellencamp. Right, I got
Something,
him.
something.
I got
Yeah,
him.
he's got great songs.
He's got great songs. Anyway, like
Mellencamp's the deal.
I'm on on Ticketmaster. They're really expensive right now, but
Yeah.
I'm waiting on Game Time.
When is the concert?
March 27th in Rockford.
Oh, wow, it's coming up in spring.
Yeah.
Cody, I might have to look.
Are me and Luke Stuckmeyer going to hang out at John Mellencamp concert?
That would be so cute.
Mellencamp. Take my son.
That would. Oh my
I mean
God.
Cody. You know.
Oh, right.
Will I be Luke's son for a night?
All right. So the Cubs. Listen, we're all in a good mood because finally something happened.
Yeah.
Finally something happened.
Most people. I don't want to. I'm not letting the negative people distract me today. Credit to me.
What's there to be? Even if you, what could you be negative about? They added a player at what seems like a very reasonable price. At the very worst, they've added pitching depth.
Isn't this what I said a few weeks ago? Like, people are screaming to Jed to just sign someone, and then he's going to sign someone, and everyone's still going to be angry that it's not whoever they really want. It's like those people are going to be angry regardless of who they sign. They can still sign Bellinger. People will still be angry about it. So, but yes, it's
so. Here's what I wondered about Imanaga. They've signed Shota Imanaga. The positives are he's a left-hander. He could be a middle-of-the-rotation guy. He was a strikeout champ in Japan. Throws low 90s. He throws a lot of strikes. The negatives, well, he does give up a lot of home runs, and we haven't seen it translate to Major League Baseball. I like the fact – I think my favorite part about it, though, is the swing and miss part. Because he is a different type of pitch. He's not the contact guy that they have a lot of already.
Yeah. And the thing is he's getting a lot of swing and miss, and it's not like he has a dominating fastball that hits triple digits. So, the Cubs are hoping that what he did in Japan translates in America. And listen, that's the risk with all these guys from Japan. You could have said the same thing about Yamamoto, said the same thing about Ohtani when he came over, all these things. But he projects to be very solid, right? Like, I don't think you're not
expecting ace out of him.
Right. I think the expectation is low, but I think there's also reason for optimism for him to maybe outperform what we expect, which that's fine. I'm again, like I said last night, I'm happy with this signing. I think we all would have been a little bit more excited about it if it wasn't the first move. Like, if they had already brought back Bellinger and signed Rhys Hoskins, whatever.
Sure.
You know what I mean? Like, just the overall thinking of this move right now I think people are either just breathing because the Cubs finally made a move, but also, like, it's like, what's next? Because this isn't really putting them over the top. I think, if anything, he's replacing Marcus Stroman, and you go into next season with a rotation that's formidable with the hope and optimism and projectability of perhaps being better once you add a Cade Horton or someone like that from your farm system that could help put this rotation a little bit over the top compared to last year.
Yeah.
So that's where I'm at with it. I don't think it's a bad signing whatsoever. And, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I don't understand why. Other than that, I don't know.
But we did go into the offseason. Almost everybody's saying the Cubs need a frontline starter, like Ron is saying, a 1 or a 2. And so if you believe Steele is a 1, you still would need a 2. If you think Steele is a great 2, you still would need the 1. He doesn't appear to be that guy. But there are ways to argue, Ryan, that this would be that the Cubs rotation still could be improved just swapping out Stroman for Imanaga. How? Well, one way would be that some of the other guys are getting better. Maybe Tyone's better than he was last year.
Yeah.
Maybe Wicks has a little more time under his belt. Maybe Horton adds to that. Do you think it's possible that on paper this rotation is better than they were last year, just swapping out those two guys?
I think if you would say on paper, no, just because you're swapping out an established major league starting pitcher who for the most part, has been a pretty high level for a guy that's never pitched in the major leagues.
Right.
So I'd say on paper, no. But I think when you look at the nuance of it, like you have, like as you mentioned, Kate Horton, but even Ben Brown could be impactful in the starting rotation this year. He should be making his debut at some point, right? I think we all kind of expect or have high hopes that Jameson Taillon will have more of a bounce back, look more like he was in New York this season. So, like, on paper, no, because people will look at numbers, prior numbers, whatever. On paper, I don't know if I would say it looks improved or it is improved, but when you look at just the nuance of Justin Steele himself is even getting more into his major league career, coming off a top 5 Cy Young finish. I think we can look at this rotation during the season, when we get to the end of the season, even before the season, and look at it as like it actually is a better rotation overall because we saw improvements in some of the prospect guys or some of the young guys that have some major league experience, or even the guys signed to a big contract that we needed to see a bounce back from. I think that there's definitely that possibility that when we get into the season and further into the season, even if it's just swapping Stroman for Imanaga, the rotation itself as a whole is improved this year than what it was on last year.
I can take a zoom out and probably argue it either way. You could zoom out and say the Cubs, as they're constructed, even if they were now to get Bellinger and Hoskins and Imanaga, those three, like let's say that's their offseason, and Counsell, you could easily argue, okay, that team's not necessarily better than very much than they were last year because Bellinger is Bellinger, Imanaga is Stroman, Counsell, okay, maybe you pick up a win or two there, and Hoskins is your DH. Okay, I believe he's potentially better than some of the options they had, but it's not like this significant jump to this offense that anybody was looking for. And the rotation jump isn't that significant jump that anybody was looking for.
Yeah.
So I understand the people that are still concerned about the offseason.
I will say that you talk, at least on the offensive side, the only real way that the Cubs could have made that significant offensive jump was by signing Shohei Ohtani. And obviously we've since learned that really was never a realistic option. It was always going to be like bring back Bellinger, potentially bring in Hoskins or maybe Matt Chapman if you believe in what some of his underlying numbers said. I don't know that this is going to be the offseason, or this was always going to be the offseason where the Cubs were going to take this huge leap offensively. They definitely can improve on what they had last year, depending on who they bring in, especially if they're able to re-sign Cody Bellinger. But I think on the offensive side, I think the dream for Cubs fans was Shohei Ohtani, and once you sign Shohei Ohtani, your offense is going to be greatly improved for sure, especially if you can bring in someone else to add to that lineup. But I still think that there's a path to have an improved offensive lineup, offensive roster. Will it be significant top 10 offense in baseball? May not be, depending on what you're looking at. But I do think if you bring back Bellinger, you add a Rhys Hoskins type or whoever it is, and similar to what we talked about with the pitching, you have guys like Nico Horner who's continuing to come into his own as a major league player. Seiya Suzuki's going to have another year under his belt as a major league baseball player. Miguel Amaya, if he can take a step, we saw some good things from him. He kind of faded a little towards the end of the season, but if he could take a significant step, that's huge. Morel, still very young, still coming into his own as a major league player, and other guys that Pete Crow Armstrong, Canario could potentially. They could potentially impact the lineup, or other young guys that are coming up, and they're going to be coming into their own. I know we're not looking to, or the Cubs relying on prospect growth isn't what everyone wanted to see this offseason, but there also is the fact that as younger guys who have either made their major league debuts or are going to get more major league seasoning, that could also be a way to help improve this lineup.
Yeah,
without just going out and signing the best players.
I don't disagree with that either. Like I said, I can zoom out and play it either way for you. You've laid out an argument that they very easily could be a better team next year. Although we are all putting a big if in there with Cody Bellinger. I think that Cody Bellinger really will likely swing, in my eyes, the way this offseason goes. What did you think of what we're hearing? We don't know the facts of it yet because he was still taking the physical today. The Imanaga contract, because it seems like The guaranteed money is potentially way less than people were talking, and it would allow way more flexibility for the Cubs to do whatever else they're going to do.
Jim Bowden sent that tweet yesterday, right? Which it's 2 years 30, can grow to 4 years 60, and reach even 80 million with multiple opt-outs. Deal very complicated. We're going to learn more about it at some point.
Interested to see the full details of it.
And I said this on yesterday's show when we talked about him, and I'm not talking about the emergency podcast, but the one before. I sat here and said that the situation with the Cubs was better than with the Giants, with the Red Sox, and the Angels. The Angels, they are stuck in mediocrity, have been in mediocrity. They're two of the greatest players I've ever seen in my entire life, and they couldn't even make the playoffs with them. The Red Sox, they played in the AL East, and you people in the chat who want to complain about teams being cheap, the Red Sox have been significantly more cheap than the Cubs, in my opinion, outside of signing Rafael Devers. They traded Mookie Betts for a bunch of washing machines. And then the Giants, they have to go up against the Dodgers. And the only pro is probably the fact that they play on the West Coast. So geography would have made sense for him. That's a tough division. So if he wanted to go to a team that was going to win and have a chance to play in the playoffs, the Cubs were the best situation. And so I think that in some aspects, that is why he chose the Cubs.
Wasn't there something this morning that a team would have doubled the Cubs offer from it? What was it?
I think I don't remember who tweeted. I think it was Bowden who might have tweeted that too.
Bowden as well.
But anyway, all I'm saying, and I'm not saying that money was not a factor in some aspects. Remember a week ago they were out. The rumor was out there. I saw a Bleacher Report put that out there, said that he's seeking a $100 million deal. It came down to the fact that no one wanted to give him a $100 million deal. And sure, there was a team that perhaps was willing to pay double, but if another team was willing to pay double and he still chose the Cubs, it comes down to the fact, in my opinion, that he probably just wanted the better situation. The Cubs have one of the best farm systems in baseball. They have a team that just literally missed the playoffs by one game. They have a lot of good things going on. They just hired one of the best managers in baseball. There was a lot of things that went into that decision for him to come here outside of just him taking a bargain deal. I think that the situation alone shows that he wanted to be on a team that's going to win. So that's the way I see it, at least. I can, in some aspects, understand why some people might disagree with that, but I think that the deal itself could turn, if he pitches well, could turn into a similar deal that Cody Senga ended up getting, right? So I guess that's more motivation for him to come over here and shove it. So I'm in.
Yeah.
We don't know what made up his mind. It could have been he's seen the ivy, he's seen the scoreboard, he's seen the vibes.
Yeah.
He might have seen a beer bat chug. We don't know.
About CHGO.
He went on YouTube and searched Chicago Cubs, found us, and he sees me chugging a beer.
And he's like, I'm in. You know what? I'll take it half price. Or he might have said, you know what? I heard ComEd has these great electric vehicles. ComEd lets you know that it's getting easier for businesses to switch to electric vehicles. That's something we can all get behind for the health of the planet and for the well-being of all of us who share it, Cody.
Yeah, ComEd, the electric grid is evolving to meet your cleaner energy needs as we all move with confidence toward an electric tomorrow. Whether you have one delivery van or a whole fleet of shipping trucks, ComEd can help guide you to make the changes that make sense.
So what should business owners do?
Well, Luke, Ryan, the chat, you got to go to ComEd.com/clean, all right? Where you're going to learn more about the resources, fleet rebates, and infrastructure incentives available to help businesses go electric. If you own a business, don't wait. Start making your plan today to switch to electric vehicles. Good for business, good for the planet, good for all of us. Go to ComEd.com/clean.
Did you say ComEd.com/clean? Because I was still celebrating the Imanaga signing.
Yes, Luke, I did say ComEd.com/clean. Go now and see how going electric connects us to a better way of doing business and a better future for generations to come.
I can't wait to see the Shota Imanaga bobblehead when it comes to FOCO. You know they're working on it right now. Get fitted out with the best sports gear around hoodies, shoes, signs, bobbleheads, everything in between. Baseball season's not that far away. 5 weeks, pitchers and catchers. 5 weeks. Ryan's already packing his Aloha shirts. You can get them at FOCO, straw hats as well, polos, bags, everything you need for a game. Maybe those sweet overalls with the bib. Our set decorations, often from our friends at FOCO. They donated some of them. Look at that Wes Nesky bobblehead. Where else are you going to get that? The answer is nowhere. Check out FOCO.com or click the link in the description below for all non-presale items. Use the promo code CHGO10 for 10% off. That's CHGO10 for 10% off.
Before we move on to our last segment, I wanted to come back to the question I asked at the end of the emergency podcast of which rotation is better right now, the Cardinals or the Cubs.
Yeah.
And after lots of thinking and Delmetrics going in my brain.
So no bias at all.
No bias whatsoever. Absolutely none. Me ever be biased ever?
Right.
I have decided that the Chicago Cubs have a better rotation than the St. Louis Cardinals.
Yeah.
No bias.
You might be worried about how many home runs Imanaga might give up, but Lance Lynn's going to give up a lot of them too.
So I was
Kyle Gibson will give up 10 or 15 hits per game, no doubt.
You mentioned the Imanaga home run thing, and I was kind of diving into Imanaga stuff yesterday and this morning, and obviously his numbers. He had great numbers in Japan, 8 seasons in the NPB. Actually, this last season he was spectacular. He still gave up 17 home runs, but he had 10.6 strikeouts per 9 innings, so over a strikeout per inning, and 7.25 strikeouts per walk. So he was basically, if he walked 2 guys in a game, he was also striking out 14.
Right, and home runs don't kill you if you don't have a ton of guys on base.
What I'm saying is he has the even without having like you mentioned, overpowering triple-digit fastball, he has the command, the control, the stuff. I know Saris put out something, his stuff plus in the World Baseball Classic, which obviously is a small sample, was the best of anyone in that tournament. But I was also reading something from Saris over The Athletic today, and he talked about the fact that he was giving up a lot of home runs, but they are like he was talking about how Imanaga or the NPB, Imanaga's pitching in a very contact-oriented league. And this is a quote from him. His approach has been to throw his fastball in all parts of the zone. But then he talked about how would it look different, how because MLB is a lot more of a slugging power kind of league, which is contact-oriented. A lot of pitchers are throwing fastballs up in the zone, trying to generate swing and miss and stuff. Instead of Imanaga obviously trying to throw to all parts of the zone to try to get, maybe some chase or to get weak contact or even some strikeouts with that fastball, which everyone says is a really good fastball, would pitching more like a Major League Baseball starter versus slug, would that lead to less home runs? That was a question that was posed. It's not an answerable one right now, but that's a question that's posed as yes, the home run numbers probably a little more concerning considering Japan is a more NPB is a more contact-oriented league. But does he get here, work with Tommy Hotovy and Daniel Moskos and the rest of the pitching infrastructure, change up the way he's pitching to hitters in Major League Baseball, and does that help control or tame or limit the home run numbers versus what it was in Japan? And that's an interesting question. Like I said, it won't be answered until we get to look at him during the season, but it's an interesting thought that we've talked about the transition from NPB to Major League Baseball and how it's different for everyone that comes over. Seiya Suzuki was a great hitter and had a star career in Japan, and he's had his struggles this last 2 seasons. So we just talk about how different the game is between playing in NPB and playing in Major League Baseball. Does his transition involve switching up the way he attacks hitters, the way he pitches, to limit more of those home runs, right? I think that's an interesting thought experiment. I think that's definitely something the Cubs, Tommy Hotovy and those guys are considering, the whole pitching infrastructure, and they're considering how to limit that. But I think that's a good point that just because of what he did in Japan, and this goes both ways, even the good things he did in Japan may not translate as well over here. But just because what numbers you see in Japan, it doesn't always mean that that's going to be the guy he is in Major League Baseball.
Same for Yamamoto. I mean, you don't know how long it's going to take them to transition their game to the Major League game. I can't remember if it was Keith Law or somebody else I was reading. They were talking about that he lands too far to his right sometimes, and that's what leads to the home runs because it leaves more time to see the ball or something like that. And And that's something that at least is identified and you might be able to fix. And if you can fix it, that would greatly cut down on potentially on the home runs. I don't know. The Cubs have a pretty good track record the last few years of helping pitchers.
Yeah.
You know, they didn't solve everything for Jameson Taillon in year one, but they have solved it for some other guys. So let's see what happens. I heard Jesse Rogers was on this morning talking about the Dylan Cease stuff, and somebody said, well, what about the Cubs? And he's like, I don't think that's too likely. They want 2 top prospects, and the Cubs are not interested in giving up 2 top prospects. I would assume that is probably – I think that's probably done with Imanaga anyway, but if they were still looking at adding a starter, as we said at the beginning of the offseason, hey, they need 2 starters, and they still haven't added that frontline guy. So if they were still pursuing that through trade or whatever, Montgomery or whatever, what would you be, circling back to Cease, are you glad they wouldn't give up two top prospects?
I'll say this. If they were to add another pitcher, like a frontline starter, I think it's more likely to be via the trade market than it is
Than
going and
Montgomery.
giving Blake Snell way too much damn money. Because Jordan Montgomery's not number 1. Blake Snell is the closest thing to a number 1. But I'm going to double down this. I don't want Blake Snell on the Chicago Cubs, guys. I'm sorry. He walks too many people, too inconsistent. We talked about it plenty yesterday. You can go back and listen to it. Now, you want to get a frontline starter? Well, you can go get a Logan Gilbert from the Seattle Mariners. You have the prospect capital. Hopefully you don't have to trade Cade Horton as well, but you can go get a guy like that who has plenty of years of control and is young and has shown to be consistent. You can still go get a Jesus Luzardo from Miami if you so choose to. Dylan Cease, if they really do want the top 2 prospects, I'm sorry, man. I'm not giving the White Sox Cade Horton, so I have to go through the whole process again like we did with Dylan Cease. I'm not doing it, bro. I don't even think Dylan Cease is worth PCA just because he walks too many guys. He doesn't go deep in the games. He strikes out a ton of guys, but he doesn't go deep in the games, man. He just and this is nothing necessarily against him. Maybe switching organizations, having a better defense behind him because he didn't have a good defense behind him with the White Sox. Maybe he could go deeper into games. But I feel like when I watch Dylan Cease, he just walks too many guys, and because of that, he is unable to go deeper into games. And if you're talking about a frontline starter, you're talking about a guy who can consistently give you 6 to 7 innings every single day. So that's where I'm at. Would I get up for Dylan Cease? Sure, but I'm telling you, I am not trading PCA or Cade Horton for Dylan Cease.
We've got the Blackhawks show coming up, so we're up against it a little bit today. Quick question, final one of the day. Would you be surprised if at the end of all of this, the Cubs don't move a couple of those prospects? They don't make a trade, and everything is just free agency this offseason.
Yeah. I think and it may not be.
I'm saying for like at least a Pete
well,
Alonso, whoever it might be. Like
here's what I was gonna answer your question earlier with a question, but regarding Dylan Cease, and I was gonna ask it back. It's like, would you be okay giving up not your top prospects, of someone in that top 10, and depending on what else you'd have to give up, just to go get Shane Bieber from the Guardians? If it's
I know a lot of people. I know people want that.
Yeah, I should. I could have.
You just got to know who you're trading. You better trade the right guys.
I could have said Shane Bieber too.
Because I think with that, I don't think you're giving up. Considering it's a 1-year deal, you're not giving up a ton of prospect capital, right? That you have built up. You're adding a solid, maybe no longer frontline ace guy, but you're still adding a pretty solid pitcher for what should be a lesser package than what someone like Logan Gilbert would take to get him. And it's a 1-year deal. So if it doesn't work out, then you still have room money-wise and on your roster to go out and get someone that's going to be the free agent next year, whether that's Corbin Burns or whoever it is, right? Like there's going to be solid, really good starting pitchers that should be hitting free agency next year. And that gives you, so if you do that trade, Shane Bieber gives you who should be a solid, dependable arm for the Cubs this year, while also not taking up roster space or money or whatever. So you still have that flexibility to do something next offseason and go and get a frontline starter. But again, I'm not saying Shane Bieber is a frontline starter. Obviously, someone else, maybe someone with more control.
But it would be great depth. That's the type of depth you'd be talking about. And it'd make the 5 starters an interesting competition.
Yeah. And you're not giving up your top prospects. Now, to answer your most recent question, that would obviously take someone maybe like the 7 to like 10, maybe a little higher range of depending on what list you're looking at. But I think that's a move the Cubs would do. So, yeah, I think I'd be more on the surprise side if they go into this season with all those prospects still intact. Because they do have really good prospect depth that they can use to make trades. And I think they would if the deal presented itself.
To end my spiel, it's not that I wouldn't take Dylan Cease. I would love Dylan Cease.
Sounds like you don't like Dylan Cease.
No, I would love to have Dylan Cease in this.
You hate Dylan Cease.
And you also hate Blake Snell.
But I just don't feel like the Cubs are in a position to trade away your top 2 prospects right now to get a guy like Dylan Cease. I think that you do that kind of move when you are 1 or 2 moves away from being a real World Series contender. And they're just not there. They're just not there. So, maybe I change my mind come trade deadline because I think he's going to be with the Sox until the trade deadline at the very least. But right now, as we speak, he's just not a guy that I feel like that you should trade your top 2 prospects for. And maybe I'm too high on Cade Horton. Maybe it's the fact that he is the best pitching prospect they've had since Mark Pryor. But I'm a full believer in Cade Horton being the ace of the staff come the end of the season. So that some people might not agree with that or think that could happen, but to me, you can still go get a Shane Bieber for a 1-year bridge or a Jesus Luzardo, which yes, again, I would trade PCA for him, but I'm not trading Cade Horton for anyone. And if the White Sox want your top 2 prospects, sorry, Cade Horton is off limits.
Go pound sand.
Yeah.
Hey, we had fun. We finally got somebody on the Cubs team, it appears. There's been an addition to the offseason.
There's news to talk about, which,
considering
what the show was yesterday,
that's right.
How derailed it got twice.
We'll be back tomorrow. We might be talking about professional wrestlers. We might be talking about another edition of the Cubs. Live at 1:30 tomorrow. Thanks for checking out today's edition of the CHGO Cubs Podcast. Until tomorrow, Thursday afternoon, fly the W.
We all silly like the mayor.